Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this. Speaking of bigs
It's
coming
back.
back, I do want to give a little bit of credit to Hubert Davis, who went out and got a pretty interesting transfer in Ven-Allen Lubin from Vanderbilt. We talked about it probably 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about winners of the offseason, how getting back RJ Davis was huge, but there's still kind of a void at the 5 spot. And while Ven-Allen Lubin is not exactly Cliff Amori, he is a guy that averaged 12 points and 6 boards at in the SEC this past season. I think he is a guy that can do an adequate job there. And when you look at what is kind of put around on the perimeter for North Carolina, I'm still in on this team as a top 5 team. And I think that Ven-Allen Lubin is a nice pickup for him. That's probably going to go under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, again, you like their backcourt. I mean, they got like four dudes in the back, right? I mean, RJ back, Elliot Cadeau, who's now a sophomore, and he was really good as a freshman, reclass freshman. You're bringing in a freshman who we saw, I think, last summer. I think you were there, and Ian Jackson, who's talented as hell. Seth Trimble's back, so like those four are really good. Jalen Washington just needed some help up front. And I think bringing in a veteran who's played a ton, who's produced in the SEC, hasn't won a ton of games, but still, I think that's going to help significantly take some of the pressure off of Jalen Washington if he isn't quite as ready. And if the matchup, I think that's the key for Jalen Washington as much as anything, the matchup. Can he handle it physically?
This got me thinking a little bit, Jeff, and I want to pick your brain on this because we were talking before we pressed record here and before we started streaming this about how there are a number of players that are pretty good players that are currently in the NBA draft and going through that process and evaluating whether or not they want to pursue a professional career or come back to school. And one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit is, there are, it's like a supply and demand thing, right? When there's a scarcity of talent available and you are a guy like a Coleman Hawkins, like a JT Toppin, like a Trevon Brazil, where that there are going to be college basketball teams that are looking to fill certain spots on their roster, and you can come back to school and maybe get more than what you would get as a pro. Like, you can kind of drive up your value this season by hanging around at the draft and then coming back to school when your name's already in the portal. My question to you is, when you're looking at some of these players that are there, if you're a coach that's desperate and you got money to spend, is it worth it to overpay for a guy that's going to come in as kind of maybe not the most impactful player, but is going to get a paycheck, an NIL paycheck that would make him seem like one of the best players in college basketball? Like, is that something that you would do in some of these situations?
Well, here's the deal. A lot of these coaches, Rob, are playing on 1-year deals now. So they're thinking to themselves, all right, some guys are thinking, all right, I don't want to go to the well too often. I hate asking these boosters for money over and over and over again. But some coaches are thinking to themselves, you know what? Like, I don't know how much longer this system is going to exist, how much I'm going to have to ask these boosters for money. And they're thinking also, like, I'm taking it year by year. I got to win this year. So I'm going to go get whoever I can to try to deal with this season, and next year I'll worry about it next year. But if I don't do well enough this year, I mean, look at Kyle Neptune, right? 2 years now, he's kind of on the hot seat. It happens quickly. If Ed Cooley, who took over at Georgetown a year ago, doesn't win this year, is it going to be hard for him to get that money again? So he might as well, if he has it right now, spend it. Spend it on whatever you can do to make your team better, even if it's not a game changer, even if it's not a Coleman Hawkins if he comes back and withdraws from the draft, even if it's a piece like Chaz Lanier, who's looking at, obviously you got Tennessee, you got Kentucky, you got, BYU. Like, he may not be a game changer. You're going to overpay for a guy like that because other than him, there's not a whole lot there for you.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that I do think there is a little bit of a risk there if you are a coach like a Mark Pope or an Ed Cooley that is probably going to be around for a couple of seasons, where if you do overpay for a guy that doesn't live up to the expectations that you need, then it becomes something where those boosters may also be like, hey, look, I gave you all this money for this dude and he did this. Like, why should I trust your ability to evaluate the money that I give you, to spend it in a way that's going to allow us to get the wins that I would expect, given how many zeros and how many commas are in these checks that you are getting. Listen, thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.